How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Xbox platform and the rumorville that is going around regarding the potentiality of a digital version of the Xbox, and we're going to discuss what other things have been said in regards to a potential upgrade to the Series X, even though that is probably not the best thing to come out of this. So let's discuss that among with other things that have actually come out in regards to other hardware, because I do think that's the interesting part here, and we could be seeing some interesting tech coming along the way. So as it stands right now, the Series S and the X are the two main platforms for the Xbox. We already have two SKUs. Now, the rumor that is currently going around is that Microsoft is preparing to release another version of the Series X, and it is going to be a digital-only version. Now, as you can see on screen right now, this is a kind of mock-up, but in theory, it should actually be looking something similar to this, because the CD drive in the actual, or the disk drive in the actual Series X does take up a bit of room. So with that removed, they can actually remove some of the real estate, potentially add, a lower nanometer CPU, or maybe even just a few more fans just to make it that bit cooler so the clock speed can go higher. They can do, they've got stuff that they can work with. But if they're going to keep it exactly the same, with the only exception being that they're just going to just take the disk drive out, reduce the real estate, and make it a smaller machine. For those of you that are only digital-only console players that don't really care about going to the shops and buying a physical media for your console, well, this could actually be the one for you. It would completely alienate the Series S at this point, and depending on the price point, pretty much be the go-to one for console gamers, especially if you're a Game Pass user and only really care about the Game Pass side of things. Well, with Game Pass, you're going to be downloading all your games anyway. It's all going to be digital, so it's a win-win situation. So in my opinion, an all-digital version of the Series X is actually a smart idea. In fact, to be realistic, I think that should have been the way they should have gone right at the beginning. And instead of having the Series S could have just been a diskless version, a cheaper version of the Series X. And that's it. And then there wouldn't be this whole split between the different kind of platforms. Then you wouldn't be seeing also the difficulties that people like Lorraine Studios are having, even though I still have my doubts about that. But the reality is there are going to be constraints going forward with the Series S, especially with the 10 gigabytes of RAM. The fact is that at some point, if nothing else, is going to be the bottleneck of the Series S. The RAM should have been the same as the Series X, and it is not, and that is a problem. But this isn't a video about the Series S, this is a video about upcoming hardware for the console. Now, the Series X, diskless, I guess you can call it, actually is a good idea. I think that's cool, and if the rumors are true, then that's going to materialize, and it's going to be kind of really nice. Now, what is interesting is the fact that they talked about other hardware. Now, we've seen Colt Eastwood already talking about a revamped version of the console in 2025, not 2024. We've also seen rumors about the revamped console for 2025. Now, do keep in mind that when the PlayStation 4 Pro launched, the Xbox One X released about a year after to compete with the PlayStation 4 Pro. So, at least that's if memory serves me correctly. So that would actually go hand in hand with what's happening right now. It's almost like Microsoft are going to check to see what Sony are doing and then reverse engineer and try to release something a little more powerful. Now, that being said, the Xbox One X right now is still a pretty beefed up machine. It's not been utilized. The velocity architecture hasn't been touched. Direct storage hasn't been touched. So a lot of the features that the current Series X actually hasn't even been delved into. So do we really need an Xbox Series X Elite? I'm not quite sure. But one thing is for certain, if the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to come and is going to beef stuff up to provide a better performance, allowing you to push things even further, considering that everything is in general being tailored to the PlayStation 5, and it's already being pushed to the point where it's, we're seeing in this generation games are struggling to hit 60 FPS already. We kind of want to get back to that 60 FPS level, and the pro machines are pretty much hopefully going to take us there. The reality is, when you're looking at Final Fantasy 16, which cannot hold a stable 60 FPS, we're looking at Starfield, which is going to be running at 30 FPS. I know Starfield is a huge game, and it can't be compared to something like Final Fantasy 16, and I do understand why the game is running at 30 instead of 60. But the reality is, you have to ask yourself, if the game was on a more powerful machine, like say a Series X Elite, could it have run at 60 with maybe a few compromises in terms of like graphical fidelity? I think it could. Even now, I think the game potentially could have run in performance mode instead of trying to hit that high fidelity mark. And it'll be interesting to see even on that game, because currently the actual trailers that they were showing were running at 1209p. So that's off. I don't even think it was running at 1440p on the Series X hardware. So that's quite damning in itself. And if that's pushing the Xbox to its limit, then sure, maybe it's time that we do actually get an upgraded version. But there is other hardware that they were talking about, and I think, well, as well as the Series X Elite being within that category, I think the handheld market is definitely one of them. Now, I know the Steam Deck, the Asus Ally ROG have pretty much been like a staple. You've got the Logitech G Cloud as well, stepping in there for that cloud solution with GeForce Now, xCloud, and they're doing the rounds. But how cool would it be to have like something that can actually run native games, maybe at the power of the Series S, on a handheld? See, at that point, I think the Series S would have had like a really nice future. It doesn't need to be on parity with the Series X or the Series X Elite, if that ever does materialize. But I think a handheld version of the Series S would actually work. And I think that's where Microsoft might want to go into with other hardware. Now, we know Microsoft has been pretty skeptical about the VR market. They've not really wanted to dive in, and for good measure, because the VR market just isn't doing very well at the moment. There are a few games out there that are actually pretty decent and fun to play. The most notable one being Half-Life Alyx. It's amazing, but the be all and end all, games generally tend to not be very good, very simplistic, and the ones that did try, like say the new Horizon game on the PSVR 2, it's pretty much a climbing simulator, and from what I heard, it actually was a climbing simulator which got rebranded into Horizon Call of the Mountain. So I'm really looking forward to the VR version of Resident Evil 4 though. So I wouldn't write off VR. The HoloLens was a cool idea. I've actually used that, and I really like the tech behind it when I actually did get to try it out. But it's just really expensive. I think it's like £2,000 for just a dev kit on its own. I mean, that's how they're available at the moment. So maybe when they go into mass production, they can reduce the price a little bit, but who knows how much that will actually cost. But I don't really see augmented reality being the future. I kind of see it being a blend of both. But the other hardware part is what interests me, and I do wonder if we're going to hear anything about it. Now, the one thing we definitely don't need this generation is more fragmentation of SKUs. We've currently already got a PS5, a Series S, and a Series X. Now we're getting the PS5 Pro. If we do add like a Series X Elite, that's 5 different SKUs for 2 platforms. It's kind of getting out of control, and it's kind of getting crazy. And I think at this point, it really needs to be toned down a bit. I think they're going a bit overboard. But one thing is for certain, if Microsoft is planning this sort of thing, if Microsoft is looking at actually doing this and releasing it, don't forget we also have like the Xbox Cloud machine that's still being rumored that it's eventually at some point going to come out. Although that won't really have anything to do with developers, it's just a cloud streaming box. But if they are planning on releasing, other SKUs of the console, I really think that they shouldn't stay tight-lipped about it and should actually come out and talk about this stuff. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of talk about Xbox going platform agnostic, but I don't really care about any specific aspect of a platform. I know they keep reiterating that Xbox as a console is at the forefront of all their plans, but coming out and talking about like a digital version of the Series X, a upgraded version of the Series X, that would, re-solidify the fact that they actually mean what they say. There's no reason for us not to believe what they're saying, but we know that they're going along this platform agnostic approach where you can play your games anywhere. And if that's the case, the PC is going to be the best place to play your Xbox games, period. But by pushing forward a digital version of the Series X and an elite version of the Series X, I think that solidifies that Xbox is at the forefront of their platform. I also think that there is a market for the handheld. I really think that they can turn the Series S into a handheld and they can sell that at an affordable price. And if they can manage to do that while actually having a SSD in there that is capable of installing games from the actual Xbox and actually run them natively at, say, like 800p. It doesn't have to run 1080p. The Steam Deck is an 800p screen and it runs beautifully. I know the Asus Ally ROG is a 1080p display, I believe, but I don't care. The reality is the Steam Deck looks beautiful, it runs beautiful, and I've got no problems with it being at 800p. I don't really notice the difference on a screen that small. The 200 pixels is not really going to make that much of a difference. Now, having an OLED, in my opinion, on the Steam Deck would have been a lot more, noticeable in terms of improvement than the extra 200 pixels you'd get from going from 800p to 1080p. So to me, the screen quality is way more valuable. But I do believe that when they talk about other hardware, if they are talking about a handheld version of a console, like a handheld version of the Series S, I think that could work really, really well. I just hope that they do not go down the route of having 10 gigabytes of RAM, because that is horrible. And I think that is really the bottleneck for the Series S. I think having 16 gigabytes of RAM is base minimum in today's standard. Considering they're using DirectX 10 for everything, it's pretty much a PC in itself. It's running off Windows architecture. It's running off the XGDK. To me, 10 gigabytes of memory is really just the wrong choice. But hopefully that can be sorted in the handheld version. And at that point, if it's powerful enough, it would actually give people, they could run like a campaign. Now, this is me kind of, tinfoil hatting, but maybe they could offer like a campaign where you can go trade in your Series S and get this handheld version of the Series S that can actually, be used on a dock that can then plug into your TV and have like a Switch-like experience. And therefore, by doing that, they are kind of upgrading the Series S with slight tweaks with the RAM that are the bottlenecks, in my opinion, to actually make it more desirable, to make it easier for devs to work on, and then hopefully that narrative will just go away. But anyway, that's just me rambling and sharing my thoughts. But do let me know what you think about a Series X digital only, and would you be interested in one? And also, considering the Series X hasn't really been utilized in any way, shape or form in terms of its raw performance potential with its technology that's currently within that beautiful box, would you be interested in going and upgrading your Xbox Series X to an Xbox Series X Elite? And finally, if they did release a handheld version of the Series S, would you be okay if they offered an upgrade path, like for like, you trade in your Series S for a handheld version of the Series S? Would you be okay with that? Is that something that you'd be interested in? That you can then connect up to your TV or your monitor to actually play your games through it, much like the Steam Deck is right now. Would that be something that you are interested in? Essentially, it's going to be the same hardware with a bumped up RAM. They can fix the mistakes that they did. I know this would be a massive campaign, but it's interesting nonetheless to think about. And finally, if they don't go through that route, would you be interested in a handheld console from Microsoft? Lots to talk about. I'm not going to go into the VR because I know how the Xbox community feels about the VR. I'm actually really fond of VR, but I don't think it's being utilized to the best it can. and it's a shame. But that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion. Thanks so much for watching. Do consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you've made it this far, leave a comment below with a hashtag more choice for more gamers. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.